Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm looking again at the Honda CB500X in nitric orange. Let's consider this part 2 of my CB500X video, as I've spent considerable time discussing this bike in a previous video. I think this is a striking motorcycle. I like how they tastefully tuck the radiator under those streamlined fairings, instead of having the bike led by a television set like some of its competitors. I especially like the bolt-on rear sets and passenger pegs, which I think hints to some anticipation on the part of Honda that this bike will have its limits pushed a bit by us riders. I did not, however, get onto the Motorway in my last video, and if one is considering a midweight bike, this is a point of interest. Let's see how it fares.
The wind's kicking up. I was thinking that was a bad thing, because I really don't like being tossed around by the wind when I'm riding a bike, but since I'm testing this one out, it's probably for the best that I'm being tossed around by the wind, because I can really see how this bike balances with a bit of turbulence. I'm really pleased with that pickup. The RPMs don't go really high. I mean, I have a 600 that goes to 14,000 RPM for redline. This goes redline about 8,500, but there's enough there. It's high enough. It feels like it's spinning high around 4,000, 4,500 RPM, but let's get on the motorway and see what this thing is like. The test for those small bike is whether it can stay up with traffic on the motorway. The other test for a small bike or a midweight bike is if you feel like you have enough presence on a big road. On these long, straight roads, cars tend to go faster and drivers are more complacent, tired, and distracted. The opposite needs to be true for a biker. And having some presence on the road and feeling like you have presence on the road is going to give you that confidence to be riding on this big road. That wind is really kicking my ass right now, but the bike is really stable. I'm not being tossed as much as I thought I would be. The windshield's a really good height, actually. It's not terribly high, but it's sending the wind right up over my visor. Normally, if I ride a bike with the windshield too small, it sends it right to that visor, and I got a lot of turbulence on my neck and head. But there seems to be a little lip here, too, that's just enough to send that up over my helmet, and that's really comfortable for me. Something I didn't notice earlier, and it's only that I'm kind of cruising out here on the highway now that I'm aware of, is that there isn't a gear selector or gear indicator on the display. I kind of, especially when you're cruising along, I kind of like to be reminded what gear I'm in instead of kind of guessing or topping it out and going, oh, I'm in 6th gear. The wind's really hitting me from the left, and the bike is very stable. Ooh, it's hitting me both sides now. That truck going by caused a bit of turbulence. This bike is nice and stable. I'm going about 60 miles an hour now, and it does not feel like 60 miles an hour. It feels like I'm cruising at about 40 miles an hour. Really getting hit with the wind right now. And again, the bike is planted. It's the only thing that's causing the bike to sway a little bit is what's happening in my shoulders. Let's open it up. All right, 65, 70 in no time. 72 miles, 73 miles an hour. There's a little buzz in the handlebars at 5,500 RPMs. 76, 77. There's a buzz at 6,000 RPMs in my handlebars. 82, 81 miles an hour. I'm going too fast. Let's back off a little bit. 73 miles an hour, 5,500 RPMs. That's comfortable. Wind is definitely more noticeable. The windshield doesn't seem to be doing the same amount of protection as I was happy with at 60. Whoa! Up on this bridge, hit with the wind from the left. Really felt it, but didn't feel like I was going to lose control of the bike. The bike is nice and planted for how light it is. Yeah, this thing can cruise. I'm a little concerned, I think, about the vibrations in the handlebars between 5,500 and 6,000 RPMs and higher. It doesn't seem like it likes to go faster than about 75 miles an hour. I have the power to accelerate, but I'm pinned right now, so it takes a little bit of convincing to have the bike accelerate with some power over 75 miles an hour. From 60 to 70 miles an hour, I still have that snap of the throttle for acceleration. At 75 higher, I'm pinning the accelerator, and I really have to convince it to accelerate. You're not going to overtake anyone like that guy just did me. You're not going to be winning any bike shows, and no one's going to be looking at your bike at the petrol station, especially if you're touring with your buddies. But you're going to have a secret. You're going to know something that they don't know, that this bike does everything you ask it to do and more. I think things are built to a price on this bike, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels like it's done for a budget, but the budget has some quality. I can't tell you how happy I am that this thing performs on the highway. Jesus, I'm at 70 already. Didn't know that. I mean, that's a testament. If the bike's not telling you that it's working hard to get you to speed, then it'll do what you ask it to do. What more do you want from a motorcycle? The front fairings that go out to that little ADV style beak are just wide enough to protect you from the wind coming at you. You can kind of hide behind it and feel a little bit of warmth. This is a cold day today, but I'm feeling very protected from this weather by this bike, which is something else I didn't anticipate. Other than those little niggles that owners I've spoken to have about the quality of the metal on the engine casings, the kind of plastic used for the indicators, generally, I think this is a pretty fine example of what value for money is. And I do like this orange. There's lots of bikes that claim it. I haven't heard that this bike has made any claims, but it would be telling the truth if it claimed that it was an all-arounder. Because in the slow stuff, filtering in the city, out on the highway, it's done everything I've asked it to do. And I can't say enough about the marriage of this transmission with this engine. It's like that old married couple you see walking to the shop. It takes them 8 hours to get to the shop and 8 hours to walk back, and they know exactly what they're buying and they never say anything to each other. It's so in sync because they've been working well together for so long. The height is really good on this bike. You feel perched up high. You feel like you're on a very tall motorcycle. But when you put your feet down, your feet are flat on the ground. It's giving you the best of a very large motorcycle in terms of seeing over traffic, having a presence on the road, but still having something that's manageable and maneuverable and compact. There's a lot of motorcycles that you buy, especially at this kind of entry, mid-level price point, that you buy and you immediately start going online looking for how to improve it. What kind of aftermarket parts would you get to change out or upgrade? I think this would be a bike that you would drive off the lot and probably live with for quite a while without having to do any upgrades. I mean, there's lots of people who are getting all those Rally Raid products to make it more of an ADV style bike. But you take a bike that's 5,000–6,000 pounds and you add another 3,000 pounds on top of that, you're getting damn near close to justifying the purchase of a XADV, an FGS, an Africa Twin with a little more money. And you're kind of defeating the purpose of buying this bike. I think you could live with this bike the way it is, probably for a really long time. Always with it in the back of your mind that you'd upgrade, or happy that you'd have the possibility to upgrade, and never really doing it. I think there's probably a lot of happy stock CB500X owners out there, as long as they haven't been convinced by the other motorcycle enthusiasts that a 500 is too small. I'd say in America this would be a bike that has a short lifespan because everyone's looking to get up to a leader bike or 1,000 cc's or higher, but I think there's probably a lot of reluctant sales because they're selling it because their friends tell them they need 1,000 cc's, or the motorcycle community tells them they need 1,000 cc's. But really, they probably are quite happy riding their 500X and probably miss it when it's gone. I don't even own one yet, and I know when I give this back, I'm gonna miss it when it's gone. I was saying earlier that I think the time for this type of bike is almost past. Just enough technology and safety features to make it modern or contemporary, but just enough mechanics to make it feel like a pure motorcycle. I think the time for these bikes is almost past, but I'm glad I'm living in this time.
If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.